Hi, my name's Helen, and today we're going to look at how to prove if your SEO activity is actually paying off. It can be really, really hard to prove that the work you're doing as an SEO is actually having a benefit to a company's bottom line. You've probably been in those conversations with stakeholders where you're trying to explain to them that no, it's not just that the company's suddenly magically grown in brand awareness or social media activity hasn't caused you to suddenly see an increase in search engine visits. Actually, it's the SEO work that you've been doing that has resulted in more revenue coming into the company. The problem is that SEO is notoriously difficult to measure. We look at things like keyword rankings and maybe visibility and traffic, but actually it's quite difficult to pinpoint whether it's the specific work that you've been doing that's caused an increase in people searching for your product or your service, or whether something else has had an impact. And when you're looking at things like SEO budgets, you really need to be able to attribute the work that you've been doing to that ROI. And that's what we're going to talk about today. So exactly why do we need to be able to prove that our SEO is working? Well, we need it for buy-in. Because if you're looking to try a new campaign, say an outreach campaign, and you need additional resources for that, then you need to be able to prove that work that you've previously done has actually paid off in order to get that additional buy-in. If you want to keep the budget that you already got, you need to prove that it's bringing about return on investment. Perhaps you are an SEO and you're actually just fighting for your job at the moment because budgets are being pulled all over the place. Or maybe you're in charge of an SEO budget and you want to keep working on SEO because you know the benefit it brings your brand, but you need to be able to prove to the purse holders that actually it's working for them. And maybe you just want to keep hold of all of those fancy SEO tools that you bought into recently because you really like them, they help you to do your job better. If you are going to keep hold of those expensive tools, you need to prove that the work you're doing is benefiting the brand. And that's why we need to really be able to drill down into the work that you've been doing and proving that it is the reason you're seeing an increase in organic traffic and organic conversions. To do that, we need to start by measuring properly. And that means making sure the data you're getting through Google Analytics or whatever other platform you're using is good data and that you're not missing any valuable data. First, you need to look at what is the actual success metric for your company. Now, if you're working in an agency, sometimes this can be a little bit hard for you to define if your stakeholder within the brand you're working with isn't able to communicate it to you well. And you just have to try and go with what you think is the most valuable metric to be measuring for them. But if you're working in-house or you've got a really good relationship with the brand you're working with, you should be able to have that conversation with them. What actually matters to them from a whole business perspective? And from there, what are the marketing goals that they're working towards? And from there, what should your SEO goals be? And when you really understand what their success metric is, you can start speaking their language. Any reports that you give to them, any discussions about how SEO is paying off needs to be given to them in the language that they are using internally so they can really understand that you are contributing to their overall business goals. Are you checking the right metrics? Keyword rankings are incredibly important to SEOs, but not many people outside of SEO. It's not necessarily the best measure for you to determine whether SEO is paying off or not, because the fact that your website is ranking slightly higher for a particular keyword doesn't mean you're necessarily going to get more sales or conversions off the back of it. You need to look at the metrics that genuinely show whether you are getting closer to those overall SEO, marketing, and business goals that you've already talked about. Make sure you're monitoring any changes to your tracking. I cannot tell you how many times I've gone into Google Analytics to produce a report for a client to find out their tracking's been off for a couple of days because the developer's pushed an update and it's taken the Google Analytics code off the website. This kind of stuff happens a lot and you need to be really on top of it. So you need to build those processes that will stop people from messing with your tracking without you knowing about it. Next, you need to look at things like what else might affect organic traffic, because it might not just be the SEO work that you're doing that has an impact on organic traffic to your website. And you need to be able to isolate those variables from the work that you're doing to prove that the work that you're doing is paying off. Other SEOs might be doing things on or around your website. If you are working in a team of SEOs, some of them might be doing things to the website you're looking at that could also have an effect on your organic traffic. Or perhaps the brand that you're working with has got a few other agencies taking control of the digital PR or other stuff that might have an impact on your organic traffic. Keep an eye on what other SEOs are doing for your brand. Developers, they can make a website amazing. They can make it convert so much better than it was before, but they can also do things like overwrite your previous SEO changes. So you need to know what the developers are doing so that you can get ahead of the curve and advise them on on the best SEO way to do something that they're looking to achieve. You also need to know what other marketers are doing, because other marketing channels will affect your SEO. So you need to keep in the loop of what other marketers are doing. Again, if you're working with a brand, but you yourself are an agency or a freelancer, it can be a bit difficult to get in on the loop of what's going on with other marketing functions within that business or other agencies that are working with them. But you need to try. So start having those conversations with them. Make sure that you're kept up to date with all of the marketing plans that are going on with that brand. And interns. This is just a little word of warning. Interns can be incredibly enthusiastic, but just make sure that you know what they're up to if they're working on or around your website, because there's a chance that they might do something that actually isn't necessarily the best thing for your SEO, but because they don't quite know yet, they won't have stopped to think about it or tell you. So make sure you know exactly what your interns are up to at all times. You also need to isolate other factors that are going to have an impact on your SEO. So things like website changes. I've mentioned already that developers can overwrite SEO things that you've done, but other changes to the website, like functionality on the website, how filtering works, all of those sorts of changes can have an impact on your SEO. If people have just started adding additional content and it's not something you're aware of, then this absolutely can have an impact on your SEO. Now, it might be that it actually has a really positive impact, but then it's not something you can necessarily then take claim for. You can't get the credit for that if it's not the work that you've carried out. So if you're looking to prove that your SEO activity is paying off, you need to keep abreast of what's going on the website so you can see which changes are SEO influenced and which ones perhaps have happened outside of that. You also want to be monitoring changes to your site at all times. There's quite a few apps and different programs you can use to monitor changes to your site. But the sorts of stuff you want to be keeping an eye on is things like hosting, to make sure that your website's up all the time. I had a client once whose website went down all the time, sometimes for hours at a time, and it had a massive impact on their organic traffic for obvious reasons. You want to know when sites are going down so that you can say, actually, yes, there's been a drop in organic traffic to the site, but that's because the site wasn't live at the time. If you want to prove your SEO activity is paying off, you kind of need to know all of the negative things that are happening to the site so that you can show that it wasn't actually something you were responsible for. Industry changes. It might be, for instance, that there's a new type of product in the industry that is actually kind of better than the stuff that you're selling, or is something that your prospective audience might be more interested in. That is going to have an impact on your SEO traffic and performance. It will affect conversion rates. It's the kind of thing that you need to know about so you can get ahead of the curve, but also so when you see a dip in your organic traffic, you can explain why it's happened. Competitors. What if a competitor leaves the market, or maybe they merge with another competitor to create a super competitor? That's the kind of stuff that you need to know about, because it will impact traffic to your site. Suddenly your competition is going to change dramatically, and that's going to change how well you rank. It's going to change how well you're going to be visible in the search results. All of those things are going to impact your overall performance in terms of SEO. And also the algorithms. I don't need to tell you how much the algorithms can mess with your SEO, but actually they can also benefit your SEO as well. For everyone who is a loser with the latest Google update, there's going to be people who are winners as well. So if your website suddenly sees an increase in organic traffic and you can't really work out what's gone on, it could be that the algorithm change has actually favored you for once. But what I would say is you cannot blame the algorithms for a downturn in your traffic if you're not going to give them a chance if your traffic has increased for some reason. You can't just blame the algorithms if you're not willing to give them credit sometimes. But really, you need to know what's going on with your site. It's no good just guessing, I think it might be an algorithm update that's meant all of our traffic's dropped. You need to know with certainty so that you can prove that the activity you're working on is getting results. So how do we do that? Well, first off, let's look at what else has been affected on the website. Paid media. If you are running a lot of brand campaigns for pay-per-click advertising within Google, for instance, you are going to notice a drop in your organic traffic from brand terms, because suddenly a prospective user will have gone from one choice to click through to your website to two. So they used to only click on your organic search results because that's all they could find for your brand. And suddenly they've got this paid advert running alongside it that they can click on instead. That will impact your organic search traffic. So you need to know what your paid team are working on. Similarly, social media. If your social media team are doing really well and they are getting a lot of interest in your brand or your services, you might notice a corresponding uptick in people who are searching for your brand. Now, you can't really take credit for that. because that's the social media team who have done that work for you. It just happens that organic traffic is coming off the back of it. So you need to keep up to date with what your social media team are doing. So ideally you can work alongside them and help them when they're looking at increasing brand visibility, but also so you don't just assume that any additional organic traffic that's coming to your homepage is because you're an awesome SEO, whereas in fact it could be because of another campaign that's running. Referral traffic. If you're seeing a lot more referrals, it could be because you're getting a lot more backlinks, but equally it could be because of the work someone else is doing. And direct traffic, who knows what direct traffic is? Most of the time it's just this black, dark abyss of information that you've no idea what channel is actually driving that traffic realistically. So with direct traffic, just keep an eye on it. If there's a sudden increase in direct traffic, you might notice a decrease in organic traffic and vice versa. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean there's a correspondence between direct and organic traffic, but actually it could just be that whatever platform you're using to track your website visitors is having trouble properly identifying organic traffic for what it is. And similarly, offline traffic. If there's offline branding, if there's been a lot of work for offline branding, you might notice an increase in your organic search traffic purely because your brand's getting more known. And because of that, people are searching for it more. Similar to the page and social teams, if your offline marketing team are really hitting it out of the park, then it will have an impact on your organic traffic. And again, you can't necessarily take credit for that. So the best thing that you can do when you're looking at your data to really prove that your SEO activity is what's generating this return on investment is go granular with your data. So that means looking at specific things like exactly what pages have seen an increase in organic traffic over time. Because if you can identify what pages have seen an increase, you can start to determine whether they're pages that you've worked on recently or pages that may have benefited from a technical SEO update that you've carried out. You can start to attribute the increase in traffic to those specific pages with the work that you've done. Which keywords have been affected? If you're noticing that brand terms are suddenly shot up in impressions, then it could be because of another team's work that's causing more people to search for your brand. If it is related to a specific product that you've been working on recently and pages that you've been updating, that's a better indicator that it's the result of the work that you've been carried out. What time period has that change occurred over? If you've noticed there's been a steady increase in organic traffic over the past year, is that because of work that you've been carrying out recently? Or is it actually likely to be because of something else that's taken place? You need to have a really good understanding of how long you've been seeing this increase or decrease in traffic and whether it's potentially just a peak and a trough or something that's more substantial. Look at what locations have been affected. If you're noticing a sudden increase in traffic coming to your website from a particular city or country, is that because of activity that you've been carrying out in those cities or countries? Is it because of work that you've been looking at in terms of internationalization for your SEO? Or is it a bot? You need to have a good understanding of where that traffic's coming from because you should really know what work you've been carrying out and whether it's likely to have affected those locations. If it hasn't, then it might be that the fact that you've suddenly seen an increase in traffic from a particular city or country isn't actually anything to do with the SEO work that you've been carrying out. Next up, you need to build your theory. What do you think has happened? Why do you think you've seen an increase in organic traffic over time? It's not really enough for you to just say it's because you're awesome at your job. You need to go a bit more specific than that. So look at things like, has this happened before? Have you seen a similar trend in an increase in organic traffic? Does it tend to happen every time you launched a new product, for instance? Or is it something that's been very consistent since you've been working on a particular aspect of the SEO? Are the changes sudden? Really sudden peaks and troughs in traffic can be the result of something else. A real sudden drop in organic traffic could be because your tracking's gone awry, or a very sudden increase could be something to do with another team's work. Social media have suddenly really raised the visibility of a particular product or service, and that's generating a lot of organic traffic off the back of it. When you've got all of this in your mind, when you're looking at the work that you've carried out and these other factors that could have an impact on your website, and you're looking at the organic traffic and conversion and those results that you've been working so hard to get, you can kind of start to work out, are the results because of the work I've been doing, or are these other factors like industry changes or competition changes or the work that other marketing teams have been carrying out? Is it that's likely to have caused this change in organic traffic? You need to eliminate those false assumptions. So you need to stop just assuming an increase in traffic or a decrease in traffic is seasonality. It could well be seasonality. It might be that you see the same peak or trough in traffic every year. that every December you suddenly see visits to your site and conversions go through the roof because of Christmas. Or it could be that it's not seasonal at all, but you're just assuming it is. And the thing with seasonality is you can still see unprecedented growth, even if you always see an increase in traffic during that time. It could be that previous years you've only seen an increase of 10% over the December period, the Christmas period, in your organic traffic and conversions. But actually, because of the work that you've been doing, it's been 20% this year. That's the kind of thing that you do need to be able to identify, because that is what you should be taking credit for. Don't just assume that an increase in organic traffic and conversions is because SEO is working, unless you can really drill down into what you've done and how that has impacted your SEO performance. You're not really going to be able to say that conclusively that it's because of the stuff that you've been doing. And don't also just assume that because organic traffic has dropped through the roof, that it's because of something someone else has done. It might not be that at all. You want to make sure that you are withholding blame before you've actually definitely determined that it's another team that's had an impact on the work that you're doing. So the key to proving that your SEO activity is actually paying off is by being systematic. So you need to really look in detail at those aspects that we've just gone over. Look at what's going on in your industry, look at what's happening with your competitors, isolate what other teams have been working on and how that might impact your SEO activity. And look at things like the pages that have been affected, the keywords that have been affected, exactly what products are selling more than were before. Being really systematic in how you approach analysing your data will help you to determine if it's the result of the work you've been doing or something else. And be imaginative. You've got to think around the problem a little bit. Consider what else might have been going on. Do a bit of research into the industry. Look at your competitors in more detail. All of that will help you to determine whether it's your work or something else that's seen that increase in traffic. And make sure you're sure. Before you start claiming victory or blaming other teams, make sure you know without a doubt that your data is sound, that your methodology is sound, and that the results that you have gained through SEO is definitely the work of your hand. So thank you very much for listening to me today. I'm so glad that I got a chance to speak to you about proving that your SEO activity is paying off. Thanks so much for listening.